My wife greeted me at our doorway with her young boyfriend and stated, "We're together now. This house belongs to us and you should leave." A few days later her lawyer came begging me for a deal. Well, I'll tell you everything from the beginning. 9 days I'd been in Jacksonville installing commercial plumbing systems for a new hotel complex, working 16-hour days in sweltering heat, thinking about nothing but getting home to my house in Tampa, to my wife Monica, to my comfortable bed and maybe a cold beer on my back porch. I'd been doing this commercial plumbing work for 12 years, built my business from absolutely nothing, started with just a beat-up van and a toolbox my dad left me when he passed. Every pipe I'd laid, every system I'd installed, every client I'd earned, it all went toward that house, toward building something solid and real. The drive home felt longer than usual, probably because I was bone tired, but also because something felt off about Monica's texts over the past week. Short responses, weird timing, just not like her usual self. I chalked it up to her being busy with her yoga classes or maybe just missing me, but man, I had no idea what was waiting for me. I pulled into my driveway at around 6 in the evening, expecting to see Monica's car but instead finding this flashy red sports car parked right where I usually park, some expensive-looking thing that definitely wasn't ours. My first thought was maybe she had company, maybe one of her yoga friends stopped by, but something in my gut told me this wasn't right. I walked up to my front door, the same door I'd painted myself last spring, fumbling for my keys when suddenly it swung open before I could even touch the handle. There stood Monica, but not the Monica I'd married 3 years ago. This version had a cold, almost hostile look in her eyes, like she was looking at a stranger instead of her husband who'd just spent over a week working to pay our bills. "Tyler," she said, and her voice had this tone I'd never heard before, like she was announcing something at a business meeting. "We need to talk." Behind her, I could see movement, and then this guy emerged from what looked like my living room, tall, probably late 20s, with perfectly styled hair and wearing clothes that probably cost more than I made in a week. He had this smug expression, like he owned the place, and he was holding my coffee mug, the one Monica got me for Christmas with "World's Best Husband" written on it. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Who the hell is this?" I asked, but before Monica could answer, the guy stepped forward with this confident swagger that made my blood pressure spike. "I'm Kevin," he said, extending his hand like we were meeting at some social event. "Monica and I are together now. This is our house and honestly you need to leave." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, processing what I'd just heard, looking back and forth between my wife and this complete stranger who was telling me to leave my own house. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice probably shaking with a mixture of shock and rage. "Our house? This isn't my house. I bought it, I pay the mortgage, I've been working my tail off for 9 days to keep this roof over our heads." Kevin laughed, actually laughed, like I just told the world's funniest joke. "Dude, Monica and I have been living here for months. I've got my whole setup here now, my ring lights, my cameras, my streaming equipment. I've been creating content in every room. This place is perfect for my brand." That's when I noticed them professional-looking lights scattered around my living room, a tripod set up near my fireplace, and what looked like a portable green screen propped against my dining room wall. "You've been what?" I asked, pushing past both of them into my own house, and what I saw made my stomach drop. My living room looked like a film studio. There were cables running everywhere, my furniture had been rearranged to create different sets, and I could see ring lights set up in my kitchen, my office, even what looked like equipment staged in my bedroom doorway. "Kevin's been working on his social media presence," Monica said, like this explained everything. "He's got almost 50,000 followers on TikTok now, and he's been using the house for his content. It's actually really exciting, he's on the verge of getting sponsored deals." I felt like I'd walked into someone else's life. "Are you completely insane? This is my house. I don't care if he's got 1 million followers, he has no right to be here." Kevin stepped closer, and I could smell expensive cologne mixed with arrogance. "Look, Tyler, I get that this is awkward for you, but Monica and I are building something here. I've been creating content that showcases this lifestyle, and my audience loves it. Some of my best videos have been filmed in your office. Actually, that wall of business awards really adds credibility to my brand." The audacity was breathtaking. This guy had been using my house, my possessions, my achievements as props for his social media fantasies while I was working 16-hour days in Jacksonville. "Monica," I said, turning to face my wife, "are you hearing this? He's been living in our house, using our stuff, pretending to own my business." She had the decency to look uncomfortable, but not nearly uncomfortable enough. "It's not like that, Tyler. Kevin needed a place to create content, and you're always traveling for work anyway. The house was just sitting empty." Empty? I could barely form words. "This is our home, Monica. Our home. Where you and I built a life together. Where we talked about starting a family someday. And you've been letting this guy turn it into his personal film studio?" From my peripheral vision, I noticed my neighbor Frank standing in his yard, probably drawn by the raised voices. Frank's a retired police officer, seen it all, and he was clearly taking in every word of this disaster. Kevin must have noticed him too because he lowered his voice slightly, but the arrogance never left his face. "Tyler, I've been working really hard to build my platform. Monica understands that I need a space that reflects success, that shows my audience I'm living the life they want to achieve. Your house, your business success, it's perfect for my brand image." "My business success?" I repeated, and I swear I felt something snap inside my chest. "You mean the business I built from nothing? The business that pays for this house? The business that's been supporting my wife while you've been playing pretend?" Monica stepped between us, but instead of defending me, she said, "Tyler, you need to calm down. Kevin and I have been happy here. We've been building something together." Building something? I looked at both of them, and suddenly everything clicked into place. "How long has this been going on, Monica? How long have you been letting him live in my house while I've been working myself to death to provide for you?" The next morning, I did the first thing any sane person would do. I called a locksmith. By 10 a.m., every lock on my house had been changed, and I made sure to get the heavy-duty deadbolts, the kind that would make Kevin's pretty boy hands hurt if he tried to force his way in. Frank watched from his porch as the locksmith worked, giving me an approving nod that felt like validation from someone who'd seen his share of domestic disasters during his police career. I started digging deeper into this nightmare, and what I found made my blood run cold. Kevin hadn't just been using my house, he'd been living an entire fake life using my identity and possessions. My gym membership? He'd been using it for months, apparently telling people there that he was a successful business owner who was expanding his brand into fitness content. I found out when I called to check on some billing issues, and the staff mentioned how Mr. Kevin had been coming in regularly, using the private training rooms for his video shoots. My streaming services showed activity I'd never authorized: Netflix, Hulu, HBO. Even my premium Spotify account had been accessed from devices I didn't recognize. But the real kicker was when I started looking at his social media accounts. I'd never bothered with TikTok before, but curiosity got the better of me, and I searched for Kevin's profile. What I found was like stepping into an alternate universe where this guy was living my life better than I was. Video after video filmed in my house, in my office, with my business awards clearly visible in the background. He'd even made content sitting at my desk, talking about entrepreneurial success and building wealth through smart investments. In one video, he was holding up my plumbing contractor license, talking about how diversifying your business portfolio was key to financial freedom. The comments were full of people asking for business advice, and this fraud was actually giving it, pretending to be a successful contractor while probably not knowing the difference between a pipe wrench and a screwdriver. I screenshotted everything, saved every video, documented every lie. The worst part was a video he'd made in my bedroom, where he was talking about creating the perfect space for success and love, while Monica was visible in the background, laughing at something off camera. The comments were full of people saying they were relationship goals and asking about their beautiful home. I felt sick watching it. 3 days after I changed the locks, Monica showed up at my door with Kevin and some guy in a cheap suit who looked like he'd gotten his law degree from a cereal box. "Tyler, this is David Garcia, Kevin's attorney," Monica said, like she was introducing guests at a dinner party instead of bringing legal threats to my doorstep. "We need to discuss Kevin's tenant rights." I almost laughed out loud. Tenant rights? He's not a tenant, he's a squatter. And a fraud. David stepped forward, trying to look authoritative but mostly succeeding in looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mr. Tyler, my client has been residing in this property for several months, establishing residency. Under Florida law, he has certain rights that prevent illegal eviction. He's been residing here without my knowledge or consent while I was working out of town, I shot back. That's called breaking and entering, not establishing residency. Kevin, who'd been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. I have proof of residency. I've been getting mail here, I've established this as my primary address for business purposes, and I've been contributing to household expenses. Contributing how? I asked, genuinely curious about what fiction he'd come up with. I've been creating content that increases the property value. My social media presence has actually made this address more valuable from a marketing perspective. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. Frank, who'd been working in his yard but clearly listening, actually stopped what he was doing and stared. Even David looked uncomfortable with Kevin's reasoning. That's not how property law works, I said, trying to keep my voice level. This is my house, I have the deed, I pay the mortgage, and I want you gone. Monica jumped in, and for a moment I thought she might actually side with sanity. Tyler, please. Kevin just needs a few more weeks to find another place. He's got some big brand deals coming through, and he needs the stability to close them. Can't you just let him stay temporarily? Temporarily? I looked at her like she'd suggested we set the house on fire. Monica, he's been using my house, my possessions, my business reputation to build his fake social media empire. He's committed fraud, identity theft, and God knows what else. And you want me to let him stay? You're being dramatic, she said, but she couldn't meet my eyes. Kevin's actually really talented. Do you know how hard it is to build a following like his? He's almost at 100,000 followers now. Built on lies. I exploded. Built using my house, my accomplishments, my life as a backdrop for his fantasy. That's when Kevin made his biggest mistake. He pulled out his phone and started showing me his analytics, actually bragging about his engagement rates and how his home office content was his most popular category. As he scrolled through his videos, I saw something that made my heart stop. He was showing me a video filmed in my home office, but in the background, behind him, my computer screen was visible. And on that screen, I could clearly see what looked like my business accounting software, client information, maybe even financial records. Kevin, I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, have you been using my computer? He looked confused for a second, then defensive. I needed to check some things for my content creation. Research, you know? I've been documenting the lifestyle of successful entrepreneurs. What kind of research? I pressed, but I already knew the answer was going to destroy whatever was left of my marriage. Just business stuff. Financial data, client information, industry trends. My followers love behind-the-scenes content about how successful businesses operate. The words hit me like a physical blow. This maniac hadn't just been living in my house, he'd been accessing my business computers, my client data, my financial records. Everything I'd worked for, every relationship I'd built with commercial clients, every bit of sensitive information that kept my business running, he'd been treating it like content for his social media circus. I told everyone to get off my property immediately and slammed the door so hard it rattled the windows. My hands were shaking as I rushed to my home office, and what I found there made me feel like the ground was falling out from under me. My computer was still logged into my business accounts, accounting software, client databases, project management systems, everything that contained sensitive information about my commercial plumbing contracts. Hotels, office buildings, medical facilities, all of it was right there, accessible to someone who'd been treating my business like his personal research library. I immediately called my business partner Brian, and I could barely get the words out. Brian, we might have a massive problem. Someone's been accessing our business systems. What do you mean accessing? He asked, and I could hear the panic creeping into his voice. I mean, my wife's boyfriend has been using my house as his personal film studio, and he's been getting into our client data, our financial records, everything. He's been making social media content about successful business operations using our actual business information. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Tyler, are you telling me we have a potential data breach? Do you know how many federal regulations we're bound by with some of these commercial clients? That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about my marriage falling apart or some wannabe influencer squatting in my house. Kevin had potentially compromised client information for government contracts, medical facilities, financial institutions. We were talking about federal crimes, massive liability, and possibly losing everything I'd spent 12 years building. I hung up with Brian and immediately called a cybersecurity firm that one of my commercial clients had recommended. Within 2 hours, Jake Morrison, a cybersecurity expert, was at my house with a laptop and equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. "Show me everything," he said, and I walked him through Kevin's social media accounts, pointing out every video where my computer screen was visible in the background. Jake's expression got more serious with each video. "This is bad, Tyler. Really bad. Look at this video here. I can actually see client names, contract amounts, and what looks like access codes for building management systems. If this guy has been documenting your business operations and posting it online, you're looking at massive federal violations." We spent the next 3 hours going through my computer systems, and Jake's findings made my worst fears look optimistic. Kevin hadn't just been casually browsing my business files, he'd been systematically accessing client databases, downloading financial records, and even accessing secure building management systems that I used for commercial installations. He's got login credentials for at least 6 major commercial properties, Jake told me, his voice grim. Hotels, office buildings, a medical center. This isn't just identity theft anymore, this is computer fraud, potentially industrial espionage, and about 5 different federal crimes. I felt like I was going to throw up. "What do we do?" "We call the FBI, Jake said, pulling out his phone. "Tonight. This is way beyond local law enforcement now." Within hours, my house was crawling with federal agents. Special Agent Sarah Chun from the FBI's Cybercrime Division took my statement while other agents collected evidence from my computer systems. "Mr. Tyler, we need to understand the full scope of what Mr. Kevin accessed. Can you walk us through your business operations and what type of sensitive information he might have obtained?" I explained my commercial plumbing business, the types of clients we worked with, the security clearances required for some government contracts, and the trust relationships we'd built over years of reliable service. Agent Chen's expression grew more serious with each detail. "Sir, based on what we're seeing, Mr. Kevin has potentially compromised the security of federal facilities, medical institutions, and financial centers. We're talking about national security implications here." The next morning, I watched from my living room window as federal agents arrested Kevin in the parking lot of the coffee shop where he'd been meeting with what he thought was a potential sponsor. Monica was with him, and I'll never forget the look on her face when she saw the FBI badges. Pure terror. She kept looking toward my house like she expected me to come save her, but those days were over. Agent Chen called me later that day with an update that made my head spin. "We've executed search warrants on Mr. Kevin's devices and accounts. What we found is extensive. He's been documenting and sharing sensitive business information from your company for months. We've also discovered he's been using your business credentials to access secure systems at multiple facilities, apparently for what he called location scouting for his content creation." "Location scouting?" I asked, barely believing what I was hearing. "He used my business access to scout locations for his videos?" "That's correct. We have evidence of him using your credentials to access building management systems, security protocols, and facility layouts at several commercial properties. He's been creating content that inadvertently exposes security vulnerabilities at federal facilities." It got worse. The investigation revealed that Kevin had been selling business consulting services to his social media followers, using information he'd stolen from my client databases. He'd been charging people for advice on commercial contracting, using my actual project data and client relationships as case studies. Some of his consulting packages included detailed information about how to bid on government contracts, complete with insider information he'd lifted from my files. Monica was brought in for questioning because agents discovered she'd been actively helping Kevin access my business systems. Text messages between them showed her providing my computer passwords and even helping him figure out how to access certain client databases. She's potentially facing charges as an accessory to computer fraud and conspiracy, Agent Chen told me. The evidence suggests she wasn't just passively allowing this to happen, she was actively participating in the scheme. Within a week, Kevin was arrested on federal charges including computer fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit cybercrime. Monica was arrested as an accessory, though her charges were less severe. The local news picked up the story, and suddenly my quiet suburban neighborhood was crawling with reporters wanting to talk about the social media fraud case that exposed federal security vulnerabilities. Frank, my neighbor, became my unexpected ally through all of this. As a retired police officer, he understood the seriousness of what had happened and provided witness statements to federal agents about Kevin's activities. "I've been watching that boy come and go from your house for months," he told Agent Chen. "Always carrying equipment, always filming something. I thought it was odd that he was there when Tyler was out of town, but I figured Monica had told him about it." The scope of Kevin's crimes kept expanding as investigators dug deeper. They found evidence that he'd been planning to expand his operation, potentially targeting other contractors' businesses and homes for his successful entrepreneur content series. He'd been researching my business partners, my clients, even my competitors, apparently planning to infiltrate other companies using the same methods he'd used on mine. While the federal investigation was building their case, I made the smartest decision of my life. I hired Jennifer Walsh, a corporate attorney who specialized in high-stakes business litigation and complex divorce cases. Jennifer took one look at the federal charges against Monica and Kevin and said, "Tyler, this is going to be the easiest divorce case I've ever handled. Your wife didn't just cheat on you, she actively participated in federal crimes against your business. No judge in Florida is going to give her anything." The timing couldn't have been more perfect. With Monica facing federal charges as an accessory to computer fraud, Jennifer filed for divorce immediately, using the criminal case as evidence of destructive behavior and breach of marital trust. Since I'd owned the house before we got married and built my business completely independently, Monica had no legal claim to either. Florida's divorce laws were crystal clear: criminal activity that damages the marital estate is grounds for an uncontested divorce with no alimony. "She's going to walk away with nothing," Jennifer told me during one of our meetings. "The federal charges alone are enough to void any claims she might have had to marital assets. Add in the fact that she actively participated in crimes against your business, and she's lucky if she doesn't end up owing you money for damages." The federal case moved faster than I expected. Kevin's lawyer, that incompetent David Garcia, tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence was overwhelming. Video after video of Kevin using my business information, text messages between him and Monica planning their access to my systems, financial records showing he'd made thousands of dollars selling consulting services using my stolen client data. When it came time for sentencing, I sat in the courtroom watching Kevin's social media empire crumble in real time. The judge was not impressed with his content creation defense. "Mr. Kevin, you systematically invaded private business systems, stole sensitive client information, and exploited security vulnerabilities at federal facilities for personal gain. Your actions potentially compromised national security infrastructure." Kevin got 3 years in federal prison, plus restitution payments that would follow him for the rest of his life. Monica got 18 months probation and community service, but the real punishment was watching her entire life fall apart. The divorce was finalized while Kevin was serving his sentence, and Monica walked away with exactly what she deserved: nothing. No house, no alimony, no claim to my business, not even her car, since it turned out the payments were behind and it got repossessed. Jennifer made sure Monica understood that any attempt to claim she was manipulated or didn't know what she was doing would be met with additional evidence of her active participation in the crimes. Within 6 months of the divorce, Monica was working 2 part-time jobs, one at a grocery store, another cleaning office buildings at night, and living in a studio apartment in one of Tampa's less desirable neighborhoods. I heard about her situation through mutual friends who seemed to think I might feel sorry for her. I didn't. My business actually thrived after the whole mess. The federal investigation led to improved security protocols that impressed my commercial clients, and word got out that I'd been the victim of an elaborate fraud scheme. Instead of losing clients, I gained respect for how I handled the situation. Brian and I expanded our operations, hired 2 more contractors, and landed several government contracts that came with security clearances. Life was good. Almost 8 months after the divorce was finalized, I was working in my garage on a Saturday morning when I heard a car pull into my driveway. I looked up to see a beat-up sedan that I didn't recognize, and then Monica stepped out. She looked terrible, thin, tired, wearing clothes that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she looked like she'd been crying. I walked to my front door and waited, not bothering to invite her in. "Tyler," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to talk to you." "We don't have anything to talk about, Monica. The divorce is final, the criminal cases are closed, and I've moved on with my life." She stepped closer, and I could see desperation in her eyes. "I know I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I was manipulated, Tyler. Kevin convinced me that what we were doing wasn't really hurting anyone. He made me believe that you'd understand eventually, that we were building something that would benefit everyone." I almost laughed. "Monica, you gave him my business passwords. You helped him access my client databases. You participated in federal crimes against the business I spent 12 years building. That's not being manipulated, that's being an accomplice." "Please," she said, and tears started rolling down her cheeks. "I lost everything. I'm working 2 jobs just to pay rent on a studio apartment. I can't even afford to get my car fixed. I made a mistake, but I've learned from it. Can't we try again? Can't you forgive me?" I looked at her standing there in my driveway, begging for a second chance, and I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no pity. Just emptiness where my feelings for her used to be. "Monica, the time for second chances was before you chose to betray me. It was before you let another man live in our house while I was working to support you. It was before you helped him steal from my business and compromise my client's security. You made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences." "But I love you," she said, sobbing now. "I never stopped loving you. I just got confused, got caught up in Kevin's plans. He's in prison now, and I realize how wrong I was. Please, Tyler. I'll do anything to make this right." I shook my head. "There's nothing to make right, Monica. We're done. We've been done since the day you stood at this door and told me to leave my own house. That was the moment our marriage ended, and everything that happened after was just paperwork." She stood there for another minute, crying and pleading, but I didn't budge. Finally, she wiped her eyes and walked back to her car. As she was pulling out of the driveway, she rolled down her window and said, "I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday." I watched her drive away, and honestly, I felt relieved. Frank was on his porch, and he'd witnessed the entire conversation. He walked over as Monica's car disappeared down the street. "That woman's got some nerve showing up here," he said, shaking his head. "After everything she put you through, after all the damage she caused to your business and your life." "She's desperate," I said. "Lost everything and looking for someone to blame besides herself." Frank nodded knowingly. "I've seen it 1,000 times in my police days. People make their choices, and then when the consequences catch up to them, they want to blame everyone else. Justice has a way of working itself out, though. Kevin's in prison where he belongs, Monica's learning what it's like to actually work for a living, and you're better off without either of them." He was right. As I watched Monica's tail lights disappear around the corner, I realized that this was the moment I'd been waiting for without even knowing it. The final chapter of the worst period of my life was closing, and I could finally move forward completely. I'd built my business back stronger than ever, I had my house to myself, and I'd learned exactly what I would and wouldn't tolerate in my life. Monica had made her choice months ago when she chose Kevin over me, when she chose fraud over honesty, when she chose betrayal over loyalty. Now she was living with those choices, and I was living with mine. The difference was, I could sleep peacefully at night knowing I'd done the right thing. Justice, as Frank said, had a way of working itself out.